Hello, guys, and welcome to the first episode of F1natics. Today, I'm joined by Varun and Aryan, who are two of my very good friends and F1 fans for that matter. We have a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about. It's a 1 hour long podcast. If you want to listen to it on Spotify, the links will be available down below. I will also be releasing video footage and then short clippings on my channel, so do look out for that. And I'm gonna give you 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button and the like button because it really helps me out. Thank you. All right, let's get into it. Hi guys, so we have two kinds of fans here. I know Varun, Aryan, we went to college together. So all of us are computer science majors. We all actually love F1 for that matter. Varun here has been following F1 for quite some time. Goes back to the Vettel days. Whereas Aryan here is quite the new addition to the F1 fan base. And that's why it's going to be an interesting perspective of two different fans coming from two different generations. So let's start with Varun. Varun, tell me your story with F1, how you got started into watching Formula One, what you love about the sport, and tell us what you can.
So I started around, I would say I was in 2005 or 2006. I used to watch F1 beside my uncle and his friends and stuff. And the only names back then I remembered was popping off was Michael Schumacher, which is very obvious, and Fernando Alonso and
Of course.
Kimi Räikkönen. that was around 2005 and 6. I think that's when Alonso won 2 consecutive years with Renault.
Yeah.
I think. And so, yeah, after that, I was like, okay, it just starts going around, typical mentality of watching a race car go around the track. So after a few years of gap, I think it was 2008 or something, I was reading the local newspaper, the Delhi Times that comes, and there was this big photo of Hamilton and Massa, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a 1 point championship difference by which Hamilton won on the last lap, on the last turn. And it was very controversial because you can say that Glock let him by on that, but you never know. Anyways, so that's when the interest peaked that, it's that close in the championship nowadays and stuff. So I think I started watching some races in 2009, sort of. And it was 2010, sort of ending of 2009 and starting of 2010 when Vettel's name started popping off, saying that he's a rookie, he's mighty fast and stuff, like how Max entered the sport, similar was the experience of mine with Vettel. So that's when I was like, okay, like I'll start following this guy more closely as Red Bull is more up and coming, And yeah, I think it was Abu Dhabi 2010. You just hit and do with Meister. After that, I could never stop. Like I never missed a single practice.
Yeah.
Neither a single quali.
Yeah.
It's been an unreal experience.
Right. And then obviously Vettel's 4 years of dominance is
of course.
That you just can't get over that, because I remember back in I think 2012 it was when we had a Indian Grand Prix, right?
Yep.
We had it at the Buddh International Circuit and
11, 12 and 13.
Yeah. So in 2012 I remember my dad's company was actually sponsoring Ferrari, so he got to actually go to the Ferrari paddock right above the where they do their pit stop, and he came home with this Ferrari jacket, which I still have in my backpack. And I think that time he was like, it was an amazing race. He's like, it's a life-changing experience and stuff like that. And I was like, what the hell is he talking about, But I think, 2011, I knew what F1 was. But when my dad actually went and saw that and I saw his pictures, I think that's when I just fell in love with it. That Ferrari red, it just attracted me so much. But anyways, I'll give Aryan a chance to introduce himself. And please tell me what your story with F1 is. And I know you're a fairly new fan. So I want to know more about that.
Yeah, so like Formula One was one of those sports which was really interesting to me, but for some reason I'd never watched it for years. And a lot of my friends, even back when I was in India and when I met Varun here, like they're all talking about F1 every week, and it just seems interesting. And I think Varun told me to watch the Drive to Survive series like about a year ago.
Yes.
And that's the reason basically why I got into Formula One. So I watched all 3 seasons, and I think at the end of the second season of Drive to Survive, the season was still going on.
Mhm.
So I started watching it, and this was, I think, my first race was either the Bahrain Grand Prix last year or Sakir Grand Prix, whichever one Perez
Yeah.
won.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
one
It was
was
the
the first one I
same.
watched,
yeah,
and a very exciting race. And obviously,
yeah.
Perez won. It was his first win
Of
in
course.
Formula One, even after like 10 years of being in
Mhm.
the sport.
Hmm.
So I really liked Perez and his drive and stuff like that. And
Right.
obviously, there was this connection of India being connected to like the um, what was the name of the team
Force
for
India.
Force
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 India.
India?
India.
Force
Force
Saga
India,
Force
India.
yeah.
India.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there was that connection as well. So I really liked Perez, and obviously Red Bull were also interesting because I know a little bit about like the Vettel era and
Yes.
all that stuff. So since I got into it, I've seen some of the past races and the
Mhm.
2012 season, insane season and stuff
Of
like that.
course. Of course. Of course.
So yeah.
2012. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. But
So
and
I
yeah.
would say that's why
Yes.
I'm like a Red Bull fan right now because like Perez is one of my favorite drivers
Yeah.
and Red Bull is one of my favorite teams. So now it sort of works together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say like who you want to support and stuff, but coming at such a point where Netflix is portraying certain teams as certain personalities, that's why you think Red Bull is sort of the good guy, and that's
Hmm.
why
Yeah,
most
yeah.
people are going towards Red Bull. But it's like I've known people who've supported since Vettel era and have been Ferrari fans, and I've come
Yeah.
they have certain hate towards Red Bull, Max Verstappen, especially when he came through. I remember it was 2016 Brazilian Grand Prix. It was wet, and what Max did there blew everybody's mind because he was overtaking from the outside on the lines where you can never even see the cars.
Yeah.
And after that race, everybody's perspective on Max and the way Red Bull approach sort of changed, and they sort of came out of that negative highlight of okay, this is the best team, they have the best car, blah blah blah, and all that stuff, and now they're just relying on that fact to win, and they support first driver and stuff. But I think the way Netflix portrayed them sort of shined the light in the way Christian Horner, Adrian Newey worked with their drivers, the driver program, and all that stuff.
All right.
That's one of the main reasons why more people are a Red Bull supporter now than just a Mercedes fan because
Yeah, for sure.
No, I think it even goes back to the fact that since the turbo hybrid era, Mercedes has been constantly dominating, and obviously hats off to the team and the drivers as well. Nobody can take it away from them. Like that team is pushing the limits. I mean, with the DAS technology they introduced last year, like nobody thought that was possible, right?
That was genius.
And
that is
and I would expect lower teams to come up with these kind of ingenious solutions like there were back in the day when Ferrari or Williams would be the top teams, but there were these smaller teams like Renault who would come up with an aerodynamics package which helped Alonso win 2 championships, right? So like these are the kind of innovations I would like to see from, let's say, Alpine or like Alfa Romeo. But Mercedes is doing that, and they deserve winning 7 championships. Yes, there have been times where fans have felt like some people are just preferring Mercedes over something else, and that's why Red Bull is being the preferred choice. But yes, obviously Red Bull has had their fair share of controversy with their driver selection, but I think they came to their senses this year. Like signing Perez was one of the best decisions I think they could have made.
I think the point you actually made, it's, I don't know, I mean, their driver selection was good always, but it's like what I always felt right from the starting when I watched Red Bull is their preference was always the driver one.
Yeah.
The driver two was kind of, it goes back to the days, I don't know if you guys have ever
Mark Webber?
Or no, Mark, I'll come to Mark. I was talking about, I think it was 2003 or 4, I don't know, something like that. And it was Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello and Ferrari. And I specifically remember this. I've never watched the season, but from what I've heard in documentaries and the statements and the news reports, it's like they always forced or sort of the team orders for Barrichello to let Schumacher by.
pass away, yeah.
And I specifically remember a specific race where at the finish line he let go of the pedal just to let Schumacher.
I've heard about that. Yes, definitely.
Right. I think it was the Korean Grand Prix, but I'm not sure. But so Red Bull sort of took on that
persona,
of sort of shadowing the driver too if they are not good enough, which every driver is good enough. It's just sort of getting them their right setup according to their needs so that they can compete at that level. But Vettel at that point when he came in, he was so raw that his aggression, you could say probably the aggression and the sort of right there in the team, proving everybody wrong as a 19-year-old coming into the sport that, you can directly come out of the shadows and blow everyone away. So he was like attacking the corners insanely, poles after poles in 2010, 11, 2013 was actually massive. I think he had like 13 victories or something. So that was unheard of. So I think,
you can say that he was at his prime during that time, right? Like
he rose to his prime.
I mean that was
the support Red Bull gave him during the initial years from his shift from Toro Rosso to Red Bull is something that was commendable, because in Toro Rosso he was putting in good performances. That Italian Grand Prix win was actually
dude.
That was
I remember that.
No one ever thought it was a very wild Grand Prix.
But do you think
held McLaren behind him on the wets and being able to win that was commendable, and they instantly shifted him. And the same thing they did with, I think, Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly. They instantly shifted, but they never gave them enough time,
space or room,
exactly, to develop themselves and prove themselves. Because Max is someone who is relentless. Like of course, he is one of the best out there. There's no doubt about it. But you got to give other people a certain, I don't know, like settling in period. With the car, with the setup, because Adrian Newey's setup is different. It's more aero based, I feel. I don't know, in comparison to what Alex or Pierre was coming from.
No, I completely get that, and I think that's one of the reasons where Red Bull came to their senses, in the sense that with Perez, they don't have a choice. He's a contracted employee from another team, in the sense that if they want to drop him mid-season, they cannot just swap him with Toro Rosso. I think when they swapped Pierre for Albon, I think it was the dumbest move they could have pulled off. Mid-season, you're trying to give one young star a new car which is capable of standing at the pole position, and then expecting him to deliver. Everybody can be Max, right? Like, I think what their perception was that this guy he might not be the next Max Verstappen, but he might be like the second to him. But that's just not the case. And even with Perez, like, they signed Perez, but it's not like Perez is just like 1/10 off of Verstappen. There is a gap between them, but I think they've given him an equal opportunity, an equal chance to, settle in. The starting Grand Prix for this season with Perez was not the best, but he grew into it, right? He grew into the car.
For sure.
So two things that you just mentioned here. I mean, for Perez, it's the money that also backs him. That's a big thing, because his sponsors are actually massive. And that's actually one of the main things that even kept, I think, Racing Point in the game. If I'm not mistaken, Lawrence bought the team. The second thing being, Perez, I think, made a statement stating that, he might need, I think, 6 or 7 races to settle in. And
5
I think
races,
something like that. And it was exactly his 6th race, I think, when he directly shot up to the top and was able to do it. But he wasn't consistent with it afterwards. Of course, he had his falling out. I don't know whether the team strat is weird. I think it was the last race itself, the Brazilian GP, when he asked Max to give DRS to him so that he could be pulled along and Hamilton doesn't overtake. Either way, Hamilton was going to overtake. It was unavoidable given how the car was performing and how confident Lewis was after the sprint, what he had delivered. But they could have played it into a team role, but I don't think they ever gave them
that
Max or considered that an option, because they thought it's a huge threat to Max. But either ways, Hamilton was going for it. You could clearly see the difference.
I think I think
way he was
after
going.
the first safety car itself in the Brazilian Grand Prix, right? I felt like the gap just closed between the two drivers, right? So there was very minimal chance for anything to go wrong. The only way Max, I think, in my perception, would have won is if there would be rain. You know, like drivers would have to come in for wets or inters. This race would be slow. Things would be packed. I'm pretty sure there would be an incident. Somebody would have slipped off. If Interlagos rains are ridiculous.
If it's rain and if it's Brazil, I have 100% of my money on Max. There is
Definitely.
if
Yeah,
you're
that's
going
what
to
I
try
said.
and overtake Max in rain in Brazil, then you're either going to crash or you're not able to do it.
Exactly
That's
my
what I
point.
feel based off of just one race.
No.
And what the experience I'm talking about is from 2016, because at 2016 he was fairly sort of new. Now he has like 5 years of experience from that day. So him in rain in this era, it's going to be absolute madness, I feel. But
And also, like, if you look at Hamilton's car, like the biggest advantage Hamilton had, if you only go off of that race, was the car, because the car was phenomenal in that race. And if you have rain, then things sort of balance out, I guess.
Yeah.
So obviously Max, I think being in
because
front would have been
it sort of levels the playing field.
right.
With rain, even though he had a fresher engine, he cannot use the max potential
Exactly.
because at that point when it's rain, it's more about the tires and the way you approach the corners, and especially which line suits you the most. For Max, it's always has been a different line from most of the other drivers I've seen driving in wet. And that's why I feel, but at the same time, he's very aggressive in rain, which I feel, I don't know, I don't want to say he's not mature enough, because he is now. Back in 2016, he almost crashed, if you remember, on the straight, and he somehow managed to not crash and come back and overtake everyone and just go with it. But
all right. So since we've already started talking about the Brazilian Grand Prix, I do have a few questions I want to know your thoughts on. So I think just let's start. I mean, we cannot talk about this Grand Prix even in coming years without addressing the off-track drama that we had that week, right? Starting with obviously the Mercedes having their having the illegal wingspan for the DRS system or whatever that was by a millimeter or something like that. Don't want to get into the technicalities of it, but yeah. And then obviously that's not a decision or something that we can comment on, but what happened thereafter was, for the viewers who don't know what happened, is Max actually went after qualifying and he was looking at the Mercedes rear wing and he touched it. He was fined with, I think, 50,000 euros from the FIA, which the team wouldn't pay, but Max would pay himself as a personal fine. What do you guys think? I mean, see, I know that the cars were under park for me conditions. He was technically not allowed to do so, but I have seen cases where other drivers have done so. So obviously, I want to know your thoughts. Let's start with Aryan.
Yeah, I think honestly, that race, it had everything. And yeah, it was a lot to get my head around.
Right.
But yeah, I think the fact that Hamilton won the race is just insane. I mean, I don't think there's a lot Max could have done. Honestly, like the car was just so fast. I mean, and it's sort of, it does beg the question, like, I mean, the biggest thing is, I don't know how Hamilton always gets everything right, but like there's a certain level of luck involved too. Like the fact that this was a sprint weekend and then we found out that the wingspan was like exceeding, and that's why he, like, I mean, the thing is, in a regular weekend, this would never happen. There's no way Hamilton would have won this in a regular weekend.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. The fact that we were in a sprint weekend and then we found out that this thing was going on is just, I don't know if you like, honestly, I'm a Red Bull supporter,
so do you,
but it's a great drive from Hamilton.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of luck involved.
Do you think there was, is there any chance, like, I think this is the question I just came up with right now, but like it's really interesting to think about it this way though, because I made my last video on Mercedes and their mind games that they're playing. One of the interesting things that came to my mind recently was, do you guys think that this could be pre-planned by any chance? Like, do you think that they could have been like, let's just keep our car illegal. The worst we're gonna get is we start from behind. We anyways have a good package coming into this race. Max will somehow finish in the top 10 in the sprint race, and then it will be an easier race for him. And they would probably expect him to finish in the top 5, but obviously, like you said, things went his way. The car was just bloody insane. That's all you can say about that car that day. Like, I was looking at Hamilton cornering and overtaking the backfield, and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I think this race is gone. Like, I should shut the laptop down and just wait for that Instagram post, him holding the trophy. So yeah, Varun, go ahead.
To your question, the car was never illegal in the first place. So what happened is when the car left the pits for quali, the wingspan was under 85 millimeters because they gave a statement about it. And FIA, I think, always have the plans and the measurements of everything before the car leaves for quali, because that's when park firmway starts. After P3 and right before the car goes out to the track in qualifying 1. So when the car went out, the wing was fine. When the car came in and FIA checked, it came out to be, I think, 1 or 2 millimeters above, as you were saying before, the wingspan. And that's when the video surfaced of him checking the wing and all that stuff, whatever. And they could make a case saying that he might have done something, which is, of course, not a possibility. Because I specifically say this because I saw Hamilton in 2000, I think it was 9 or 10, I don't know. He was in McLaren and he was giving an interview in the McLaren HQ. So you know, all the fleet of cars that stands outside, he was in one of those cars giving the interview. He stood on the front wing of the car and he was doing calf raises, and he was saying the wing is actually so strong. You could jump on it and it won't break, and it actually does not. So how can a human possibly do something like Max?
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's actually you're exactly right on this. You're exactly right on this. I mean, there's no conspiracy that Mercedes like did this on purpose, but like and also like Max couldn't do anything to that car. I mean, he just touched the wing, that's it. And for that he got a $50,000 fine. I mean, I understand that you want to make things strict, and I guess if they continue giving fines from this point on for like park firmware violations or whatever, then I guess it's fine. But 50,000 was too much.
But I think
unnecessary.
I think moreover, this question more so relates to the fact that, okay, he was given a fine. I understand that. I mean, like you said, they're trying to be strict. They're trying to maintain a single regulation for everyone. But I think the bigger question is, when other drivers have been seen doing the same thing, they haven't been penalized just because it was after the race and not before the race, right?
No, even after the race, I think you're not allowed to change.
Exactly. So that's what I was coming into.
But
so if
I don't know. I personally haven't ever seen anyone touching the car. That's the thing for me.
So
but like
what I'm talking,
but Vettel has never touched the car.
No, dude,
fair enough. But like, what are you gonna do with
actually,
touching the car? It's not like you're gonna.
I would like to point something out here. So there was a video of Vettel that surfaced on Twitter, where he actually moved the whole car. He actually. So he put his foot on the Mercedes and he rolled that vehicle up and down. Video.
But okay. So on that note, his foot must have been on the tire and not any of the body parts.
No, so he was touching the wing, and then he put his foot and he moved the car as well. So he touched the wing. He looked at one of the side plates, the side panels that's used for the aerodynamics and stuff. I think that was the Red Bull. And then he went to the Mercedes. He checked the Mercedes as well. And nobody said anything to him, which is fine. I understand, because the FIA's justification to that was that the race already ended. The results were already out. So anyways, that car had to go to get refurbished for the next race or whatever. So there was no case to be made. Whereas in Max's case, the car was yet to be used and the car just came out of qualifying, right?
True.
But like Aryan said, they're trying to make things strict. So I think that singularity is what I'm trying to point. I think FIA should maintain that.
No, I mean, I agree with the penalty.
Everything. Yeah.
I agree with the penalty in the sense that, of course, it wasn't justified. Just touching wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
But the penalty was sort of to impose the fact that no one should be doing it further.
Doing this from now on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
More
And
heavy.
if they
So, yeah,
if they
if-
continue the
yeah.
penalty, then it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
They
That's
should.
If it's a
They should.
one-off,
yeah,
then
that's
it's
what
a
my
little
that's
questionable.
what my point was. I think
Right.
if they see any other driver do this and not penalizing them in the future, I think they're gonna get
Of course, that's
a
questionable enough
huge
for
backlash.
them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think. Anyways, yeah. So the next thing I want to bring up is like we talked about Hamilton catching up to Red Bull with all of these penalties, and one thing that's important to note here was that it was a sprint qualifying. So yeah, I just want to know your thoughts on how you guys feel about sprint qualifying. We had 3 races this year. I think one was in Italy, Silverstone, and then Sao Paulo. The first 2 races, I think there was a huge mix up in the midfield, and I kind of like that. But obviously, I want to know your opinion. So Varun, go ahead.
So I started following Formula 2, I think 2 years back. And
Right.
that's when I realized the concept of reverse grid, sprint races, and 2 or 3 day race weekend and stuff. And it looked pretty interesting because I think most of the viewers might not know. In Formula 2, which is the lower version of F1, they have identical cars but different teams. So you're exactly driving the same thing, just
same
brand.
spec car.
Exactly same specs. Everything is the same. Just the driver is different and the team branding is different, right? So
I think they also run different aero packages, if I'm not wrong.
that sort of differs a bit,
Yeah.
but it doesn't add like 0.5 or 0.6 second difference between the cars.
Yeah.
Not more than that, I mean.
Yeah.
So the sprint race, like the sprint qualifying as a concept is pretty fantastic in F1 because the plain qualifying seems kind of boring. It became boring over this hybrid era, especially because the spacing out between the cars increased in comparison to the pre-hybrid era, that is like the 2008 to 2013. Because if you guys remember, or if you guys might have read somewhere, 2008, 2010, 2012, even 13 were one of the closest seasons, right? I think it was 2012, 7 different race winners in the first 7 races, 7 different teams. It's unheard of. And the championship was, anyone could have won. I think in 2010, there were 4 or 5 drivers that could have won the championship on the last day. But it was Vettel who reigned supreme and won it. So that just goes to show that you have a big gap in the field. And so back to the sprint qualifying thing, the sprint qualifying sort of bridges the gap and gives the fan more of a racing content. So it's pretty exciting for us to see more racing on the field, both on Saturday and on Sunday.
Right.
But the way they implemented it is where my issue lies with it. Firstly, the point system is horrible because if you're just awarding 3 points, all the hassle that F1 team has to go through to rebuild the car after sprint if it gets damaged just for very little points is, I don't know, doesn't seem justifiable to me.
Yeah.
And secondly,
especially for the teams who know that they're not going to finish in those points anyway.
Exactly. Right. So it sort of comes. So let's take the example of Russell. Let's say, like in one of the sprint, he might finish 10th, but in the next race, like his, I don't know, he can finish in top 10, but in the next race, his tire choice changes, his whole strategy changes. But it's pretty difficult for Williams to even sustain at that level, given the track, given the circumstances, all that factors.
Exactly.
So you need to widen out how many points you give to the top 10. That's one thing.
Right.
Same for the constructor, same for the fastest lap. The same sort of similar structure to the final weekend, but a little less points maybe. Secondly, the penalty system needs to change for the whole weekend.
That's the whole different conversation we can have, right?
Right. That's a different conversation in itself. And I think we need to have this once the new regulations come through for the next season. Because for now, I cannot term as a fan how much of a penalty would be justifiable enough. Because for Mercedes, any penalty is not.
Clearly.
But if you give the same penalty to, I don't know, maybe even McLaren or AlphaTauri, they're done for. Like it's unheard of them coming even to a top 10 finish from such kind of a penalty.
For sure.
If as you said before, there's one thing that I disagree with you too. You said if this was a normal weekend, Mercedes wouldn't have been able to do it. I feel they would still breeze with it. Like their car was actually insane on that weekend.
Sure, but then I don't think they can come back from 20th.
I think I would like to
definitely not first. I'm saying they can finish top 5, but not first.
Yeah, I mean that's damage limitation. What else do they want?
No, I agree. But
because in sprint, remember in sprint in 24 laps, he did what, 17 overtakes or 15 overtakes, right?
Yeah.
And after that, he still got a 5-place penalty. Now think about this. The 25 grid place penalty on Friday, on Saturday would essentially mean he's starting back of the grid. He can just chunk in new components, no damage happening, and he can manage the limitation. It's a win-win for him either way.
Yeah.
Right. So for Mercedes, it's win either ways until unless he crashes outside or something else happens.
And I think more so my point goes about Mercedes not being able to finish even on a normal weekend was only fired by their performances. Wherever I've seen Mercedes as a car is not built to run behind other cars, right? Their heating issues have always been a problem, right? If you go back to 2019 Austria, right? Or actually, if you go back to every race they've had in Austria over the years, they have always had heating issues, even at temperatures which are much cooler. If the car is running behind another car in a dirty air, that car is done for. But like you mentioned, it's just how to do damage limitation, and it's just very nice of them to just sit at the back, get new parts, and then they know that Williams, Alfa Romeo, McLaren, and Ferrari, at least for the past 2-3 seasons, are not going to be a problem for them.
I'm going to stop you here because I think if this was Bottas, there's no way they're finishing first. I feel given
for sure.
Given his confidence level. But if this was 2019 Bottas, he would have done it. He would have done it. 2019 prime Bottas I've ever seen.
I could have bet my money.
But if it was Nico Rosberg, he's finishing first. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. It's just a matter of confidence and where you are with your mindset connected to the
exactly.
If you're feeling the car totally in that weekend, then you know you're doing it. Like, as I think Hamilton mentions it quite often, but no one believes it, but they believed it this weekend, that if you believe in something, you can actually do it. And he's been doing it for the past 7 years. That's why consistency is always there, right? So it just goes
but
both a factor of team and the driver.
No, I mean, the driver does play an important role in this situation, but I think it does like bring up a question that we should ask of Formula One is that if you get disqualified from a quali, then you could just change all of the parts that you need and you're still going to be starting at the back of the grid during the sprint. And the fact that you now have like a sprint race and then an actual race, and the sprint race doesn't really mean a lot, like because they don't have a lot of points involved, it doesn't really make a difference whether you finish 5th or you finish 7th. Like that's not a very massive difference. Like, is it fair to allow teams, like, let's say someone gets disqualified and then they can change all of their parts and then come back in the race and still win it? Does that seem like something a sport should allow? I know the driver is brilliant and the team is brilliant, but should that be possible? Is the sprint format
so to your question, I don't know if your confusion is what I'm reading. So it's like you're saying if they're disqualified from quali, they change their parts and start at the back of the sprint or the race. Which one are you talking about?
No, I mean, because they're anyways, like, let's say it's a sprint weekend we had this time. So basically what they did was the car was illegal and Hamilton's lap time during quali was just taken off. So now the next event is the sprint and then you have to start at the back of the grid, right? But at that point, Hamilton could have, like, if he knows that he can, so now he doesn't just have the race weekend, he also has a sprint, right? So he could have, let's say, taken a full engine, not a full engine replacement, but like I think he got a 5-place penalty. He could change certain other parts, and I think there's another one for like a 10-place grid penalty.
That's a whole engine. He just changed the ICE for this one.
So if you change, so he could have changed the whole engine, and ideally his car would have performed even better because it's a newer engine, right? And he knows that sprint, no one's going to really go for it because there's not much points involved. So the lower teams, they I mean, yes, like those places for like the pole position is up for grab for the top teams and all of that. But like the lower teams, they're not going to challenge a lot because let's say something happens. Let's say a lower team is not going to defend as much,
obviously,
right, than in an actual race. Because in an actual race, like if you think about it from let's say AlphaTauri's point of view or like McLaren's point of view, they're going for the 3rd, 4th position. They're in a midfield battle. They don't care if the first person, if the guy who's finishing first is gonna like really they don't mind Hamilton finishing up front in front of them.
I get
They're in
what you're
their own
saying. I
battle,
think,
right?
yeah, I
So
think,
the thing
yeah.
is for those cars, they're gonna still defend a lot when Hamilton's coming if they're finishing in the top 10 positions, right? But in a sprint quality, there's no way they're gonna finish in the top 3. There's absolutely no way they're getting any points for that. It's
Unless
just a
there
1
is,
or 2 place
yeah,
position difference, which is
yeah,
which we as we know in a Formula One race, it's all on the start that you have. You can easily
yeah,
make up 2 places, even if you're starting 13th or something, because a lot of things may go wrong in the first corner, right?
right,
There's a
right,
lot of things involved in that. So
Right.
for them, they won't be defending against Hamilton in a sprint race as much as they would in an actual race, because the 10th position, you can get points just by finishing 10th,
right.
from the 10th to 5th, and that's where these teams want to finish actually. But in a sprint, there's no way in hell they're gonna be, even if they have their best drivers and best performance and best car, there's
Right.
no way they can finish in the top 3 in a sprint.
Of course,
So I
of course.
mean, that sort of does come
So,
into, like,
yeah,
I think that's the reason you said there
we
needs
get
to be a
it.
better point system implemented in the sprint, and
But a
then the
better
sprint
penalty
race.
system, but a
Right,
better
right.
penalty system as well. And the
Yeah,
thing
yeah, for
you're
sure.
mentioning is absolutely correct, because this is a discussion that I've had with many people over the years I've met. They might have known F1 for a year, they might have known F1 for a decade, doesn't matter. Everyone asks the same question, because this is something that is, I don't know, it is consistent in the terms of the penalty they deliver, like a
Right.
10 place or a 5 place grid penalty, so that wise they are consistent, but it's not consistent as to the team they're putting the penalty to, because
Right.
for Mercedes, any place penalty is not going to be justified given the way they have developed the car over the years. But the same penalty would be very harsh on the lower teams, let's say
Right.
Alpha you just mentioned. So this penalty discussion would only come into actual foresight when they're changing the rules for the next year, which they already have till great extent. They're still yet to finish up and release, I think, a new version at the end of
Right.
this F1 calendar year, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
That's when they need to have this discussion about, and I think it's the winter testing that's really going to see how much closer the cars actually are.
Yes.
The non-DRS part's going to play, how the following is going to be, and all of those are going to sort of come into play when they're deciding, okay, how much penalty do we need to give? What's the standard do we need to set? Because they definitely need to change.
Right.
But I don't know. Seeing F1 for the past decade, I don't think they're going to change. But who knows? I mean,
but this is an interesting question for sure. Like, does sprint quali work right now? And
Right.
I think the clear answer is it doesn't work right now.
It does. I think
system
it.
it has.
I also feel
it
like
does
it
from
doesn't.
a marketing perspective, but it
I
doesn't
mean, like
race perspective,
Yeah.
because the points up for grabs are actually
brings in more viewers for sure.
True.
For
yes,
sure.
but then I think it's too much
not,
racing.
But
in
at
my
the
opinion.
expense of I think it's just at the expense of
the lower teams,
teams.
for sure.
Yeah, the lower teams for sure. And like I agree with both of your points, and to just add to it, the fact that teams like Williams and Alfa Romeo, and I'm specifically talking about these two because, and Haas actually, and these three teams are consistently performing bad for the past number of years, and F1 knows this clearly. Like, they are getting the smallest size of the pie out of the whole bunch of money that the F1 gives to these teams, and they have the lowest sponsors. Williams had to change their ownership, and multiple of these teams have to rely on sponsorships completely to even have. For once, I know that Alfa Romeo recently only opened a wind tunnel in their facility. They didn't even have money to have a wind tunnel. So
most teams don't.
Yeah,
most teams
so
don't have
so
that.
aerodynamics is just going to be shit. You just know it off the bat. So it's just like, and I completely agree with Aryan when he says that if a Mercedes car is coming and I'm driving an Alfa Romeo, and if I'm a driver, I have that competitive spirit, but I also do have common sense, right? I know that my battle is not for the first. My battle is for 10th,
Exactly.
for maybe 9th. So I can just let him buy and then fucking focus on my race, right? And not
this
get off.
connects to-
This works in the sprint quali specifically, because there's no
Exactly.
way I'm going to finish up in
And,
points.
and
this
one thing I
connects
want to
to-
point out,
Right.
and one thing I want to point out, if you see Hamilton coming in your rear wing, okay, and you're Alex Albon, right? And for example, Alex Albon is in a Williams like he will be next year. and it's Interlagos 2019. You know you're not going to defend him because you're just going to spin around, right?
Right.
Even in 2019, Hamilton got a 5-second penalty, right?
That
And he's
debatable.
right? Yeah, he's still doing great, right? So it just begs the question that does penalty system it's really hard for even F1 or the FIA officials to come up with a penalty system that's fair because of this huge performance difference. But I think that performance difference is still going to be there next year, right?
Of course.
I'm not gonna bet my money on Williams being in top 5. I can probably bet on top 10, but not top 5. No way that I'm doing that because they just don't have the money.
there are only 10 teams, so
sorry, no. So my
meant
dad.
yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking about the racing.
I know.
I was saying that I can never see a Williams finishing in the top 5 even next year, right? Probably with the new era coming in over the years, they can catch up.
Doubtful.
But yeah, doubtful. But
so
even if there was a chance, that would be a long way in the future. We can bet our money on teams like Ferrari or McLaren who are potential winners, right? And they can probably invest a lot, and I feel like they are investing a lot for the next upcoming.
Right. So this plays a lot into the financial cap they just introduced. And so as you were talking about the wind tunnel, that just reminded me of the financial cap and the financial system they just changed for upcoming seasons. So the money is distributed differently now. So the top teams get less money and the lower teams are sort of getting more money relatively to the previous time, so that they can, because the top teams don't need to develop more, but the bottom teams do need to develop. So for the wind tunnels, I think most of them don't have wind tunnels in their specific thing, but there is a specific place where everyone goes to for the tunnel testing. So what they have, if I'm not mistaken, and if I read correctly, they have limited the aerodynamics and the testing wind tunnel
testing.
time.
That's even implemented this year. That's even implemented this year.
So that adds to the fact with the fact that they're getting more money if they even come one position higher from 10th to 9th in constructors, right? But Mercedes going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1 is not going to make a much difference from them because they already have shit tons of money. Right. So this is definitely going to help the lower teams, but it's just the penalty system that we were talking about needs some sort of a framework, if not a point by point as to how they are supposed to go. And I think it's something that needs to be talked with the Drivers Association specifically, because like just for the example you mentioned for Alex Albon, a 5-second penalty wasn't fair enough. But if you think about a 5-second stop go penalty as it used to happen in the previous times, that would have been
different
a lot,
because that adds to a 20-second
22-second window plus a 5-second stop go, right? Even though he can change tires, he has a rocket ship, that's fine. But I mean, it depends on the race, it depends on the weather, it depends on the tire type, it depends on how the car is performing and all that stuff. But for Mercedes, apart from I think 2 years ago Silverstone, everything was fine.
So I think in conclusion, I feel like it's just finding the right balance between equalizing all the teams' performance in a sense, and then obviously implement, because I think penalty system is something that will always be a question of debate, right?
True.
Even if they change the rules, there will be people who like it, there will be teams who don't like it.
Of course, you can't
because that's the situation in every case. But I think a good sweet spot between balancing the performance between the teams and the penalty system would be the best way to go. But yeah, there's a lot to wait for the next year. All right. Anyways, before concluding our meeting today, I can't end this week without talking about Alfa Romeo, who already signed Valtteri Bottas, I think, a couple of weeks ago. But the second driver, Antonio Giovinazzi, to obviously leave the team for another driver. How do you guys feel about Valtteri joining this team and pairing him up with a newcomer? Your thoughts, Aryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have no idea who the new guy is because I don't watch F2.
Yeah.
But I think Giovinazzi has had like good performances this season, at least some of them.
Right.
And I think they expected more out of him, considering that he's been with the team for the past 3 years.
I think I could have framed my question a little bit better in the sense that do you guys feel Alfa Romeo is kind of making the same mistake that you would say Red Bull did, in the sense trying not to give their drivers good space, because I'm specifically not happy with this decision that this team came up with, because this driver is very comfortable in this team, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows this car, so going into a new era, he already knows how the team functions. He still knows that that aerodynamic package will not change. At least it will not change completely. I know the rules and regulations will change the car up, but he knows the team and he knows how everything functions. So I think changing him, I feel like they could have given him another year to see what his complete potential was, because I feel like, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I've seen the onboard camera footage for Antonio every starting of the race. This guy has amazing overtaking capabilities. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, Kimi Raikkonen and this guy, they have a lot of overtakes, especially in the first lap. Obviously, because everything is packed, but you still need a good control over your car
Right.
to even perform this kind of thing. And even over the course of the Grand Prix, this guy has been consistent. I don't remember him crashing out a lot. I don't remember him, creating a fuss with the team. He's always followed team orders, even though there were not much to follow. But he's always been a team player. So I just feel a little sad for the guy who's not been given his chance. Whereas on the other hand, Valtteri Bottas bringing him in, I don't know what your thoughts are. So yeah, obviously go ahead.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
go
like I
ahead.
think the thing is, I don't mind Antonio Giovinazzi in the car, because if
Yeah.
you think about it, Alfa Romeo has they have to beat Haas and Williams, right?
Right.
That's their main two competitions, I would say.
Yeah.
And at this point, you are adding in Valtteri Bottas, who is a race winner. I know Kimi Raikkonen is a world championship winner and has
Yeah.
a lot of experience, but like Valtteri Bottas within the hybrid era has been at the front of the grid a lot of times.
Yeah.
He knows how to win races. He has a lot of experience with this sort of a car.
Right.
And putting him in the team really does bring the experience level up, I would say,
Yeah.
because even though Kimi is a very experienced driver, in the hybrid era, Bottas has been at
Has
the
been,
front.
yeah, definitely.
So
So
it's
yeah,
it's definitely a good
good
addition to
idea.
the
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
than Kimi, who's off and on sometimes during
Yeah.
the races.
Yeah.
When it comes to Giovinazzi, I think putting in Bottas in with Giovinazzi would have been great for Giovinazzi as well,
Right.
just because of having the experience of a race winner
Exactly.
in the hybrid era.
Exactly.
And I don't think Giovinazzi has been that terrible this season, especially that he
Yeah.
doesn't get a seat in Formula One. I mean, if
Yeah.
you think about Haas, they've been terrible, and part of it is that they removed both their drivers, and now they have two rookies coming in,
I think,
and also the new guy coming in from F2. I'm assuming he's going to be good, but the point is, being a rookie in the upcoming season is going to be really tough,
yeah,
because the cars are going to be like
exactly. And it's
absolutely
like
different.
you're first of the batch, right? It's like
Yeah,
if you're going to a school that's just open, yeah, you don't have any seniors, right? So it's like ahead of you, it's just
New
dark. So
experience.
you are
It's
the
a
one, yeah. So
completely
you are the
new
one lighting
experience.
up the torch, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Um,
it's nothing similar, because the aerodynamics from this season and next season is going to be
Very
insanely
different.
different.
True.
So I would
exactly.
much rather be a rookie in coming in like Sonoda came in,
Yeah. Yeah.
with a car that is somewhat, I know F2 and F1 is different,
Yeah.
but it's somewhat similar, and you've seen these
And
kind of cars go
yeah,
in,
and
then
I feel
coming in
it's not
blind.
just about the cars. It's also about the whole
The
routine,
team, yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
routine of a whole F1 season, because the F1 season is rigorous in terms of physically, mentally. You're traveling, you're constantly training, and you're constantly up for PR meetings, this, that, 10,000 bullshit that you have to
Yeah.
deal with. So I think as a rookie, if he was introduced this year, I think it could have been so much easier for them to go back there. But let's hear Varun.
Okay, I mean, so to the point of Bottas, I was actually reading the news right before we sat down for this meeting. Bottas would have stayed in Mercedes if they handed him a multi-year contract, like a 2-year contract.
Right.
But
Right.
he said on the F1 Beyond the Grid podcast that I was watching the other day, that I straight up talked to Toto and I asked him, can you give me a 2-year contract or 2 year or more? He said, no, at the moment I cannot. So he was like, okay, this is my sign to leave and start something new, a new
Right.
project in my
Right.
life, essentially, similar to what Vettel had is in mind.
Right.
But yeah, so him coming in Alfa Romeo is good because he gets a new environment, a new start, a
Less
different
pressure.
different. Of course, definitely less
that's the
pressure,
biggest point, I think.
and him being the lead driver,
Yeah.
with the new coming in,
Yeah.
so he would be able to help develop the car into something better.
Right.
Kimi leaving, that's I think his own decision. I don't think the team decided for him to leave.
Yeah.
And I think people still underestimate Kimi, as in like he's
Yeah.
he can drive.
Yeah.
All the points that Alfa Romeo has till date in this season is all by
It's
Kimi.
all Kimi.
Yeah.
Giovinazzi only got a single point by finishing 10th in one race.
Yeah.
That was just barely by a margin.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that Giovinazzi is not good. He is good because I think it was only a single race in this whole season where he finished below 15th. All major races he was 11th, 14th, and I think one was 16th and one was where he was 10th. So he's a consistent driver, and I've seen races where he didn't have audio for the whole race. He still drove brilliantly, he finished 11th. I don't know how he did that. So there are instances which shows Giovinazzi is a deserving driver.
Yeah, definitely.
But to say that they're rushing in like Red Bull is sort of, I feel wrong, because Giovinazzi had enough time in the car to prove himself, which he sort of did.
Yeah.
But the second driver coming in is F2's, I think, second contender. Like he's running second for the championship or something. And secondly, I think it's probably money comes into the effect, because I remember Giovinazzi's tweet. It says F1 is sort of a brutal place when it comes to money, which is very obvious.
Yeah.
And we all know that Perez wouldn't have signed into Red Bull if he didn't have that big of a sponsor coming in with him, because Red Bull needed that money to develop and start a new relationship in engine manufacturers.
Talk about Lance Stroll, dude. Like he's in a car because he's bringing in money. So
that was a point that I used to make, but he drives good at
No, not that he's a bad driver.
He's improved now.
He's improved, but that's a fact to consider. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Why do you think Nikita Mazepin has been
exactly?
Do you think the whole driver lineup changed? It's because Nikita's dad bought shares in the company that is making it survive.
Yeah, and with Haas,
so much so that you have a Russian flag on an American team.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's actually funny, but
it's Haas.
money talks.
With Haas, like Aryan also made this point that they brought in two new drivers, rookie drivers, to a completely new season, which is definitely not helping them. I think Roman Grosjean or Kevin Magnussen would have done
better.
At least something. Would have been better.
At least
is a fantastic driver.
At least something with that shitty package that Haas is giving. But I personally feel like Haas themselves have no motivation for this complete season.
Yeah.
Like in winter testing itself, they were like, we are in this season because we already signed a contract to stay in F1 for the next few years. I remember they signed a contract. I don't remember the name. But I just feel like they are like, okay, cool. We know that our package is not the best.
For the next year.
Let's just bloody focus on the next year. We don't really want to get into a fight where we know we're not competitive. Like, look at Gunter Steiner, dude. Like this year, I can't even see him on the paddock. Like last year, he would be on with Martin Brundle and talk shit about other stuff. I see press conferences with him, and no longer is there fire within him. Like there's no zeal to even compete. I remember the first few years when Haas came in, they were battling with Renault, dude. Like legit battling it out with Renault.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden finding themselves to the back of the pack. And I think it was just their, I don't know if I should say this, but I just felt like it was their beginner's luck at the time. Like everything, the situation with McLaren being with Honda and things not working out, just pushed them back. Renault was still trying to figure out what was going on in that season, and that just played into Haas's hand with a good package. I'm not saying their package was bad that year; it was pretty damn good. But their driver lineup is something that was always commendable, because both of their drivers, I think, got 100% out of that car. Like Kevin Magnussen drove that car to full potential, even though there have been times that I didn't appreciate what he did on track or off track, but he's brilliant as a driver. And then, like you said, money talks, right? So bringing in two drivers, but I think with Haas, it's also like, they brought two rookies. They used to F1 now. They go into a new era. They'll just be used to this.
See, I think one of
bringing
the rookies was unavoidable because
Yeah.
if your
Yeah.
dad buys a good chunk of the team and you
Hmm.
obviously want your son to be in the team.
Yeah.
So I think that was unavoidable.
Yeah.
The other one, Mick, I think was really good in F2
Yeah.
and it he did deserve a seat, I guess. So it's
I
it's
was
fine,
hoping,
but
I was actually secretly hoping for Mick to go to Alfa Romeo instead of
so
Haas,
so
but
because he was a
unfortunately,
Ferrari,
yeah,
he is a
he was a
Ferrari
Ferrari
junior
driver. Yeah.
program, so
Yeah.
yeah,
automatically it connects him to go to that place, but
Yeah.
right.
didn't, which is very surprising to me.
I think the only reason was
Callum
before
Aylott didn't, so
yeah, the only reason I felt was um I think Haas was a good team in the sense that they actually treated both the drivers equally. If you see all the seasons throughout, they did not leave it to one driver to do their job. So I think it was fair for them to let go of both the drivers at the same time. But again, they signed Mick only because he was amazing in F2, and I think he just deserves so much better.
I
Yeah,
was just searching to confirm because he won the last 2020's championship.
yeah, he won the F2
Hmm.
championship, obviously.
He won the
So
championship by 15 points, and
right,
Callum Aylott was second, and
yeah,
Sonoda was third, which is
right,
you
right.
equal cars. So I mean, Schumacher did deserve the seat. No one can say
Yeah.
because his dad's name is attached to him. That would be utter
Right.
bullshit. I don't
What,
know. My
yeah,
opinion is
and
to be
yeah, just
honest.
to end it off, what do you guys generally think about the whole driver lineup in the sense for the next year? Like Russell moving to Mercedes, I know he definitely deserves to go to Mercedes. I think
For sure.
his drive with Williams, especially in that in the
Last
Belgium
season.
Grand Prix, is qualifying, dude. That
I
guy.
mean, but then again, it comes to the point that in Belgian Grand Prix it was wet, so it's essentially
It was, but for
was
that car to
playing.
achieve that lap time was brilliant.
No, but
Was
it
brilliant.
then again, that's what I'm saying. It comes down to the driver when it's wet because when you
Exactly.
those lines,
Exactly.
Hmm.
there's no
Exactly.
replicating it between the drivers because you
Exactly.
don't have that confidence in
And
it
I
to
think,
go up. Yeah.
and I think I would want to make another point in the sense that I think Williams is one team that I find um, produces some of the very, very good drivers. I think you see Valtteri Bottas, like look at him.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's again a Mercedes driver program,
No,
so
definitely, but I
that's
just
why
feel
they
like
scout and bring. It's similar to
yeah,
Red Bull
yeah,
and
Red
Toro
Bull, yeah,
Rosso and Alpha
right, right,
Tauri
right,
now.
right, right.
So
Yeah.
all the top three teams have their driver programs.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
essentially, they do scout, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right. Anyways, thank you guys for joining in today. It was an amazing discussion. And I will hope to see you guys in further more discussions after the season, especially. Thank you guys for watching this, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Bye-bye.